Imagine waking up every morning and hating the way you look so intently that you even hate the shape of your own shadow. Well, that was life for my next guest who has spoken about his life with body dysmorphic disorder. And we're saying good morning to Keith Russell from the Endless Spiral website. Morning, Keith. How are you?
Morning, Kathryn. I'm good, actually. How are you?
Good. Yeah. Happy New Year to you.
Same to you.
And I mean, I think just in general, this time of the year, we're seeing, as you know, we were getting a lot of messages, new year, new you. There's a lot of big focus on change and improvement. And I suppose that can send people into a negative space in a time when it should be about positive change. But I suppose the first question to ask is, can you just explain to me what is body dysmorphic disorder?
Yeah, it's classed as a mental health condition, and I think it's related to anxiety, which obviously, it causes a lot of anxiety in you. It's when you feel you have a lot of flaws that other people can't necessarily see, but it's a lot of it is in your head. So you think you have these perceived flaws, but they're not necessarily visible to other people. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yep.
for example, I have a small birthmark on my ear. I guarantee you probably haven't even noticed it this morning. But when I was younger, I felt like I might as well be walking around with a flashing light on my ear.
Okay.
It's that type of thing. It's like, and it can affect your weight or your shape. And of course,
Okay.
it affects men and women as well.
Yeah, yeah. And then how does it manifest differently and more insidiously than just being conscious about the way you look? Say if you're conscious, some women are conscious about their arms or their arse or their whatever, How does it go from to becoming more insidious and more destructive than that?
Yeah, I think destructive is a good word to use. I was thinking this morning, and I was like, it's when your thoughts become quite intrusive, but destructive is a good word as well, because for me anyway, my whole life became destructive for me anyway. It's really when the negative thoughts in your head become, as you said, destructive, but they become repetitive, and it's when it starts affecting your life really.
And how did it impact your life?
It impacted my life in every way.
Okay.
The negative thoughts obviously caused a lot of anxiety, which I didn't realize at the time caused a lot of depression. They affected my social life. They affected kind of any relationships I had. I kind of withdrew from everything. I didn't like to be in pictures. I didn't like to go out much. Like I always say this, but I would sit there multiple times a day, and I would kind of start at the top of my head, and I'd work my way down to my toes, and I would list off all the things on my body I didn't like about myself.
God.
And I mean, literally, would start at the top and work. I could probably list 20 things, and I would do that multiple times a day. And as you know, when you start telling yourself these things over and over,
You start to believe it.
You start to believe
Yeah,
it, exactly. Yeah.
And is I'm sure maybe not in all instances, but with body dysmorphic disorder, is it commonly linked to eating disorders and disordered eating?
It can do, yeah, and that's exactly what it is. For me, it was it was all or nothing. So I know we were talking earlier on about the all or nothing thing. It can affect your diet, of course it can. For me, it was binge eating.
Okay.
For other people, it can be restricting.
Yeah.
There's another thing called muscle dysmorphia, which affects a lot of men, and like I also would have had that, where you want to be more muscular, and
And is that then going to the gym obsessively?
yeah,
Okay.
you're absolutely obsessed with exercise then.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
a negative way. You're doing it for the wrong reasons. Like now, if I exercise, I'll exercise to affect how I feel, not to affect how I look. But back then, it was all about to affect how I look. I thought, well, if I look better, I'll feel better, which of course, as we know, isn't necessarily the case.
So
But-
when did you know, like, because you have a family, like when did you know that this was a real problem, or when did you put your finger on the button as to what the issue was, and how did you go about getting help?
Yeah, it was during COVID really, and I was working from home. And I used to write ghost stories when I was a kid, and I just sat there one day, and I wasn't planning on writing a ghost story, by the way, but I just said to myself, I'll write a blog. And then the blog turned into a second blog. And I was writing about sport and how it affects me, and people were obviously reading between the lines in the blogs, and someone had come to me and said, have you ever heard of the term body dysmorphia? Of course, I'd never heard of it before.
Wow.
And I looked it up, and just a light bulb went off over my head, and I'm like, wow.
That is me.
And I was able to kind of go back in my life and start linking things. Like I was already in therapy for anxiety, but I was able to go back to my therapist and actually pinpoint specific things. Because even to my therapist, I wasn't really talking about my body. I wasn't talking about, because as we know, like especially with men,
It's very difficult, yeah.
it's got this kind of like, you know, stigma attached to it, which it shouldn't. But yeah, it was really during COVID, and I looked up the term, and then like educating myself on it was massive for me.
Okay, and where are you at now, Keith? You've been very vocal about it. You do a lot of talks as well. I mean, really promoting this side for men particularly, because we know that when it comes to disordered eating or you know, body issues like that, it tends to be women that come forward. So it's great that you are out there. You are a voice for men and women.
Yeah.
You do talk. So and the website again is The Endless Spiral. So how are you doing now? And it's great that you got to a place where you're able to talk about it.
Yeah, and look, and you said about like the talks. I do a lot of talks in schools, and the reason is because when I go back, I was kind of around when I was 13, is when I started to kind of notice things about comparing myself to others and starting to have these body image issues. And I have a son now who's 13, so the talks in schools are very important to me. But I'm doing okay now. I mean, look, I'm probably going to live with it for the rest of my life. But I mean, I manage my thoughts so much better now. I can kind of catch the little triggers, and the negative voice in my head is a lot smaller now. And I'm able to kind of, like I said earlier, I exercise now to affect how I feel, not affect how I look.
And I'm just thinking about parents who may be listening at the moment who have 13-year-olds or 12-year-olds and are slightly concerned. And again, it's sort of, I suppose, hard to distinguish between what is general, just normal teen anxiety and teen body issues, and then, you know, a full disorder, body dysmorphia disorder. So what advice do you have for parents?
Yeah, it's a good question, actually. I always tell people, first of all, is to go to Body Wise. I always mention Body Wise. You know them yourself.
Yes, I do, yeah.
Because they've got great information for parents there. But I would say is to just look out for maybe changes in behaviour. Maybe your child is becoming a little more kind of
withdrawn.
Withdrawn was the word I was looking for, or maybe they're becoming more emotional, which I know teenagers will do anyway. Watch out for maybe their reactions from social media, and to just be careful. And of course, no judgment. What I do to my kids is I just offer them a safe space to talk. I will never mention or name anything, and I'll say that if you want to talk to me about anything, I'm here. And I think that's a good start, is to just make your kids feel safe, that they can talk to you about anything. It doesn't have to be that.
And again, just even having a conversation like this, it's to put that, like, now people know what it is, body dysmorphic disorder. It's not to panic, it's not to overwhelm parents or scare parents. It's difficult enough raising teens, I'd imagine, as it is. But listen, it takes people like you to come out and talk about it, that, you know, puts it out there for everybody. So the website is called theendlessspiral.com, and you can check out, that's Keith's website. And as Keith said, any issues that you have or any concerns, bodywise.ie are great for information and help for you and your loved ones. Keith Russell, Happy New Year. Thanks for coming in to us this morning.